let our next speaker, Rosalba Nattero, speak, because she has a deadline to meet. And then we have at 4 o'clock a professor from Oxford University coming on, who's going to address the whole question of the Ukraine war, the geopolitics, and so on. So we have a hard break at 4. I want to give time for Rosalba's very important contribution, which is following on from a lot of what's been talked about. Rosalba is a druidess from northern Italy and has been active for a concept of a World Eco-Spirituality Day, among many other things. So Rosalba, please speak to us from Turin, I believe is where you are, yeah?
Yes, I speak
the floor is yours.
Yes. My statement is about WOS world order, comparison between the majority society and the eco-spirituality society of natural peoples, means indigenous people. Sorry for my bad English, and I have a colleague here that at the occasion can help us, Marco Petrillo. Thank you.
Greetings.
If,
can I just give the title, Rosalba, before you start? We've been talking about grand ideas and world systems, but Rosalba's going to talk to us about whose world order, question mark.
Whose
comparison
world?
between majority society and eco-spirituality of natural indigenous peoples.
Exactly.
You know, if we're building a huge world system, what about the indigenous people around the planet? So Rosalba, do please share your thoughts.
Yes. If it's too long, please, Thomas, stop me.
Go for it. Well, 25 minutes now.
Okay. Today we live in a world full of conflicts. The war in Ukraine is just one of many wars. At the moment, there are at least 59 in the world. The void of values of the majority society increases this situation, and no peace situations are expected on the planet. The societies of natural people, those indigenous people who have preserved their traditions and have not allowed themselves to be assimilated by the great historical religions, do not have any impact on the planetary situation because they have been relegated into historical pockets that count for nothing. Yet they would have a lot to teach. We can give some example. Viking society, which is usually considered to consist of crude and uncultured warriors, had a parliament called the Assembly of Free Men, in which all citizens participated. In this assembly, the most important decisions affecting the community were made in a form of direct democracy. Women voted and fought with equal men, as evidenced by the discovery in Scotland of the remains of a female warrior. Viking tombs remains containing canine bones have been found in Iceland, suggesting that they cared and respected their animals. Even the gorset of ancient Druidism reflects this principle. After all, the Celts and Vikings came from the same culture. We have a similarity in the Gaia Nashagowa, the great law of peace of the Iroquois Confederation, which still represents the oldest constitution in the world and is a model for modern democracy. It is common belief that the modern Western democracies derive more or less directly from ancient Greece, in particular the Athens of the classical era, and from the Republic of Ancient Rome. However, by modern standards, these societies could not way be defined as democratic. The majority of the population had no decision-making power, and many were not even considered citizen, which meant having no rights. Women were little more than property of their husband. Children were property, and slavery was common practice. However, the Gaia Shanagawa Gaia Nashagoa had a great influence on the Western Constitution. In 1988, the United States Congress passed Resolution 331, which recognizes the contribution made by Iraqis Confederacy and other Indian nations in the formation and the development of the United States. Benjamin Franklin, in particular, had a proven relationship with representatives of the Confederation. Gaia Nashagoa had its origins in myth. The legend tells of an ancient time, we would even speak of thousands of years ago, in which the Iraqis nation were at war. A man called Peacemaker wanted to spread peace and united, and on his journey, he met a Mohican leader. And the two left together to spread their message of peace and united from village to village. Thus, it was that the Iraqis nation buried their weapons and under the tree of peace, a symbol of the great law of peace. The Gaia Nashagoa is a supranational constitution. It brings together in a federation different nations which, although belonging the same people, have significant difference, including language. For the Iraqis, the great law of peace represents much more than a simple code of laws. It is the fulcrum of their cultural life, the basis of the social and personal identity of the people, and a compendium of both moral and spiritual principles. There is no difference between law, language, culture, spirituality, and sociality. It is all part of the same identity. Gaia Nashagoa mission is to make a contribution to a better world based on peace, freedom, and knowledge. It is the concept of ecospirituality, that is a philosophy of life based on the awareness that man is not the center of the universe. He cannot dispose of the planetary and all living beings as if he were the absolute ruler. What binds these nations and what also binds them to all other native nations is the reference to Mother Earth, seen as the only true mother from whom to learn and grow. Mother Earth is not only seen as our planet we owe respect to, but also as the custodian of a great mystical secret. Just as all his children must be respected, whatever species they belong to. These principles are also found in Razna, the constitution of ancient Druidic shamanism. Election and decision take place in the form of direct democracy between all members of community, in which all participate without difference of gender or social class. Unfortunately, these highly evolved societies were erased from history by colonization. It all began with a papal bull of 1452, the Discovery Doctrine, an official act issued by Pope Nicholas V, which allowed Portugal to colonize lands in Africa. Later, in 1493, Pope Alexander VI extended this official act of conquest also to Spain after the arrival of Christopher Columbus in the New World, in order that he could colonize the land across the Atlantic without problems. The principle established by the Discovery Doctrine, also known as Doctrine of Discovery, decreed the formalization of any possible oppression on the land that European conquerors seized on every continent of the planet, in which they came to kill, plunder, and enslave defenseless population. By divine right, in fact, it was lawful for them to take possession of the uncovered lands with all that was on them, including the inhabitants, to do whatever they wanted with them. Of course, as was the case in Europe, there were populations who in the secret of their more traditional institutions, resisted to the devastating fury of the invaders. These ancient traditions were preserved by the shamans, and still today they are alive and vital, progressing. According to the cliché, it is true that Europeans were responsible for the colonization. In reality, the preparations were done in Europe in the 1200 year with the extermination of the Cathars and subsequently of the Templars. This is where the action of the Holy Inquisition started, with all the massacres involved. The indigenous people are very clear about this fact, so much that in the 2012 at the United Nations in New York, a forum was held on this topic, in which it was emphasized that the Discovery Doctrine is the shameful root of humiliation and marginalization that the natives still suffer today. And it has also been pointed out that the church, the church has, the church has never disowned this bull, just as the Inquisition has never been officially abolished. We are still here, despite 500 years of trying to make us disappear, said a speaker from the Seneca Nation. This has created two contrasting realities: the majority society and the society of natural people. The majority society, designed by the Greek historical religion, is based on anthropocentrism, the dominating man with the right to use all creation as it pleased. This exploitation of resources and animals is causing the sixth mass extinction that has as its cause only one species, never happened in the history of humanity: the man. Intensive farming is among the major causes of pollution, deforestation, climate change. We are facing a catastrophe. On the other part, there are the society of natural people, those people who have not been assimilated by the Greek historical religion and who live in contact with nature intended as life reference. We must dispel the cliché according to which it is thought that they live like primitives. They are perfectly integrated in the society in which they live, but they keep their rituals, their tradition, and their tribal societies. They are social systems based on eco-spirituality, therefore on contact with Mother Earth and respect for everything around us, including the plant kingdom and animals. These people are present at the United Nations with their clan leaders and their spiritual leaders. Some of the largest UN assemblies are made up of the indigenous people. However, they have no part in the history of mankind because their reality is too far from that of majority society. Natural people, they are defined in this way because of their link with nature, are present in all continents and have very strong bonds in common, a type of spirituality that arises from intangible and mystical values. It was at the United Nations that we got to know them, and bond that unites people is evident, albeit with different custom and language. This is why my association advocates eco-spirituality, a term coined by its founder, Giancarlo Barbadoro, who had sensed its strength, precisely to give an example of society based on moral value that speak of contact with nature. We have promoted a series of initiatives, including the World Eco-Spirituality Eco-Spiritual Day. We talk about it to United Nations and to Italian Parliament, and now the request is proceeding. We believe that eco-spirituality is a medicine to cure the ill of this planet that seem to have gone mad. There is a need to rediscover contact with Mother Earth, our only true mother. Just there is a need to rediscover our true roots and our true history. Perhaps is precisely in the historical pocket of natural people, those people who are forgotten by the majority society, that we can find the answer to the initial question, was world order? Thank you.
Well, Rosalba, thank you for that brilliant talk. And, you know, you spoke on behalf of many million people around the world. I've coined a new word last night, thinking about everything, indigeneity. It's like negritude. It's the state of being an indigenous person, indigeneity. And I was reading last night Professor Norman Davies' work, who's just joined us and is the next speaker. He gives a brilliant chapter on his trip to Tasmania and the decimation of the Tasmanian indigenous people. You know, there's so much to learn around the world. We need to rewrite the history books and put the indigenous people back in.
Yes.
They hold the timeless picture, as it were. And I'm so glad you've been part of this Druid work we've been doing together. Norman Davies is himself of Welsh origin, so he can be sharing, no doubt, on all this, although he's going to be talking mainly about Ukraine. Any questions to Rosalba before we go to Professor Davies? Marco, you have a hand up.
Yeah, so I think that Rosalba's contribution goes directly in complementarity what was discussed before. Eco-spirituality locally, based on traditional knowledge, must be a part of a process of any supranational building, any supranational structure. We must work in both directions, towards proximity and habitats of communities, and towards supranational. Otherwise, it won't work. Otherwise, we will not get decentralized communities equally in the game, in the structure. So both ways simultaneously. Otherwise, it won't work.
Thank you.
I think Rosalba's contribution is brilliant into entering this need.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Marco. Thank you, Marco.
Yeah, so the Stalinist model won't work. In the old days, Stalin and his types, or Mao, thought you could improve society by moving populations here and there, you know, unifying their lifestyle, abolishing spirituality, abolishing all difference. Are you saying, Marco, that that was the wrong route? I mean, Rosalba, I'm hearing that we need to, you know, affirm the local intelligence of people, their right to live with the land that they've grown up in, and the knowledge of plants and the animals, and indeed the spiritual world, like the Amazonian rainforest and so on.
Unfortunately,
cutting it down in the name of.
Unfortunately, Stalin did not build on precious tradition of Russian anarchists like Kropotkin, Bakunin, and others, who were building ideas on local communities and self-sufficiency of local communities. Unfortunately, Stalin did not read those.
No, and Tolstoy, I would say, rather than Bakunin, might have been the better model. Bakunin was quite fierce, actually.